Greetings, I'm Terry Lewin and this is an update presentation about the Shiraz to Shore and Richmond Vale Rail Trail shared pathway. I'll provide some background about each of the trails and the Composite trail, followed by some discussion about benefits and considerations and opportunities, challenges and strategies. The original Hexham to Minmi rail line had its origins in the mid-1850s, while the Richmond Vale Railway was completed in 1905, a private coal line that serviced several local collieries. The RVRT was first proposed over 25 years ago, with active planning underway for the last decade, beginning with a feasibility study in 2014. The RVRT will be over 32 kilometres in length, with 5 community hubs from Kurri Kurri to Shortland. The trail runs along the former Richmond Vale Railway alignment, as well as utilising Hunter Water Corporation pipeline corridors. 3 councils are responsible for the RVRT's development: Cessnock, Lake Macquarie and Newcastle. To date, 27.5 kilometres of the trail has received initial concept level approval. Some overlapping zones have been identified to help characterise the diversity that trail users will experience, from heritage and conservation in and around the Kurri Township, through the Sugarloaf Range and on to extensive coastal wetlands. The zone labels that we have chosen are consistent with Cessnock Trail Strategy Network Vision Map from 2020. We have also identified 20 likely points of interest along the trail, including a 13-kilometre premier section for rail trail enthusiasts and eco-tourists from the Wallace Creek Bridge through to the road tunnel under Lanigan's Drive, a section which includes 3 historic brick-lined railway tunnels. The Richmond Vale Rail Trail can also be viewed as a conservation conduit, as it passes through or near a host of conservation areas. The RVRT is relatively unique in this regard. Tens of millions of dollars of public money has already been spent protecting the RVRT corridor. To not proceed would be extremely wasteful. We still have a long way to go, but we need to acknowledge the considerable RVRT related efforts that have been put in over the last 20 years and by a broad range of individuals and groups. Likewise, the proposed RVRT and Shiraz to Shore are consistent with a broad range of regional strategic plans and local plans. Rail trails are also very popular in Australia and internationally, although you'd have to say that New South Wales is off to a relatively slow start. According to Rail Trails Australia, there are 189 current and potential trails, and of the 33 potential trails, 19 are actually in New South Wales, so there's lots of competition for funding. Let's hope that we're as successful as the Northern Rivers and Tumbarumba to Rosewood trails have been. Hunter Joint Organisation of Councils initiated discussion about the proposed 100-kilometre Shiraz to Shore cycle trail around 2020. Here is the broad vision for the Shiraz to Shore that was presented in the Hunter Region Plan 2041 document in December 2022, which included a relatively wide mix of existing approved and proposed cycleways. The full RVRT was included in that vision. In late 2022, Hunter JO received grants from the New South Wales Government's Business Case and Strategy Development Fund to undertake the required background work to move the Shiraz to Shore forward, together with an overall Hunter cycle tourism strategy, which has tended to focus on the dynamic nature of the region and the diversity of cycling options, including mountain biking and gravel riding. Refinement of Hunter JO's plans and strategies occurred during 2023-24 narrowing the focus to 8 core sections leading directly from wine country to the shores of Newcastle Harbour and Beach and to Lake Macquarie. Finalised plans were launched in August 2024 with an estimated Shiraz to shore cost of approximately $90 million. Here is the Shiraz to shore map as framed by Hunter JO following the 2024 concept plan, with some sample images attached from west to east. Hunter JO has focused recently on the regional tourism, diversification and cost-benefit aspects, estimating that the trail will have approximately 230,000 users, and informing us that cyclotourists tend to stay longer and to spend more. Our preference is to focus planning and construction efforts on the Composite Shiraz to shore and Richmond Vale Rail Trail, which comprises the 8 core Shiraz to shore sections plus the remainder of the RVRT, totalling 120 kilometres. There is a 20-kilometre direct overlap between the RVRT and Shiraz to shore. Retention of the 14.7 kilometre RVRT section, identified on the map as Section 5A, is critical. It permits access to growing communities and new housing estates, particularly around Minmi, plus access to Hunter Wetlands National Park and a major active transport link between Taro and Shortland. The first half of the Shiraz to shore totals 45 kilometres and runs from Belford in Singleton LGA to the trail midpoint in Kurri Kurri, providing access to a range of wine country, tourism, recreation and entertainment experiences, plus heritage, mining related and country town experiences. Next we have the full RVRT, approximately 34 kilometres in total, and all of its rich history, Sugarloaf Range and coastal wetlands elements, followed by the option of heading east to the harbour and beach or south to Lake Macquarie, both of which are about 90 kilometres from the start of Section 1 in Belford. The bulk of the Composite Shiraz to shore Richmond Vale Rail Trail shared pathway falls within Cessnock local government area, approximately 48.7 kilometres, or alternatively the state electorate of Cessnock, 51.5 kilometres, or the Hunter Federal electorate of 57.9 kilometres, depending on your point of reference. There is considerable diversity along the Composite 120 kilometre route with respect to environmental features, community and other characteristics. Recently we have adopted a tailored approach in our communications, focusing on the trail aspects of particular relevance for the recipients. In the example here, the 4 federal MPs in the seats of Hunter, Paterson, Newcastle and Shortland. The trail's overall benefits are multi-layered, with regional, local and personal elements. In addition to providing region-wide recreation resources and generating economic development and diversification opportunities, the trails will promote the Hunter region as a premier cyclotourism destination, as well as providing community access and connection, health, lifestyle and livability benefits, environmental, cultural and heritage appreciation, as well as cycling-specific safety, active transport and other community benefits, and of course the trails will also be free to use. With respect to important considerations, we need to acknowledge that trails such as the proposed Shiraz to shore RVRT Composite are lifelong assets and that they'll generate regional benefits for decades to come and for a broad range of user groups. It is also important to acknowledge that it's a linked network, so that the benefits are actually amplified by having all the different sections of the trail working together. We also need to recognise that the Composite Shiraz to shore Richmond Vale Rail Trail is basically the backbone or spine that, in combination with other shared pathways, will provide outstanding opportunities along its full length. So we need integrated community development that optimises the benefits for individuals, groups and the region. I've thrown in some interesting images from Bill Landenberger to further highlight the regional opportunities. Blending trail planning, construction and upgrades with other complementary local initiatives is also worthwhile, such as master plans for housing estates and sporting facilities. Several external timeframes and events could also add weight to timely construction of the trail, including the opening of the international airport in 2025-26, the expected completion of the M1 extension in mid-2028, and the bicentennial of commercial wine growing in 2028. There are also opportunities to complement and build upon the Hunter region's strengths, natural beauty and attractions, including the Fernley Track and the new Fernley-Awabakal Shared Track extension. Obtaining funding for timely trail construction is clearly the biggest challenge at this point in time. Full construction of the Composite trail is likely to cost in excess of $130 million. Another unexpected contribution from my pet donkey, Sid. It is also unlikely that full funding would be received from a single grant or commitment. So councils need to continue their strategy of seeking funds from a variety of programs. It also makes sense to develop a positive incremental approach to funding and construction. Getting some construction underway now will also serve as a stimulus for subsequent planning and grant applications by councils. We also need to ensure that the Composite trail remains high in regional priorities lists and that we continue to advocate for full and integrated development. To achieve the desired community outcomes within a reasonable time frame, we obviously need strong and ongoing support from community members and a broad range of agencies, including local councils, National Parks and Wildlife Service, Transport for New South Wales, local businesses and community groups, and of course all of our elected representatives. There are a variety of strategies that we need to pursue, including establishing an active regional trail advisory committee, planning some appropriate targeted forums, and deciding on the components of the trail that should be prioritised. A preliminary goal could be to seek sufficient funds to construct around 10 to 20 kilometres of the trail, preferably split across multiple locations. A complementary strategy could be to seek funding for specific components or barriers, including land acquisition costs, specific structures such as the bridges, or for specific community or active transport links. We have identified 4 potential Composite trail subsections that could be prioritised for finalised design and construction funding, 2 each in Cessnock and Newcastle LGAs. Importantly, they are sufficiently small and self-contained to be suitable candidates for a range of different standalone grant applications. The chosen subsections were selected because they highlight the diversity of Shiraz to Shore Richmond Vale Rail Trail linkages and benefits. For example, subsection A in wine country is all about tourism and local economic benefits, whereas subsection B promotes community connection and recreation in and around the trail midpoint in Kurri Kurri. An opportunity exists to develop subsection B at the trail midpoint as an attraction in its own right, in combination with enhancements to Log of Knowledge Park, which is actually celebrating its 35th anniversary. Subsection C comprises a 6-kilometre section around the Fletcher-Minmi area, which will be a major transition and construction point for the Shiraz to Shore and Richmond Vale Rail Trails. Finally, the principal benefits associated with subsection D relate to active transport and the opportunities to link both to the M1 extension and in the future to provide a connection to Beresfield Station. While this would be the most expensive of the 4 selected subsections, it also represents a unique regional opportunity given the current rapid progress with the M1 extension and the opportunities for experienced cyclists to ride either to Raymond Terrace or to Maitland. An alternative but complementary approach would be to concurrently seek funding for the critical 13-kilometre Sugarloaf Range section that we identified earlier. It would be proportionately more expensive to construct and maintain this section. However, there are many good reasons for potentially giving it priority over other sections. It will be a major regional rail trail and ecotourism attraction in its own right. And obviously the Shiraz to Shore cycle trail is virtually impossible without this key 13-kilometre RVRT section. Importantly, it will also provide a new, novel, attractive and safe walking and cycling experience for the Hunter region. While experienced cyclists could potentially find alternative routes to cycle from Wine Country to Kurri Kurri, or use a mix of pathways from Fletcher-Minmi to the beach and lake, there is no comparable experience to the proposed Sugarloaf Range section. Moreover, it is likely that construction of this particular premier RVRT section would stimulate local interest and attract visitors at a faster rate than any of the other potential subsections that we have identified. The cost estimates for this particular section are around $30 million, so there would be a smaller range of grant programs for which it may be considered suitable. In concluding, I would just like to thank our RVRT Supporters Group Committee and all of our members and supporters and everyone else who has contributed to development of the RVRT and Shiraz to Shore proposals. And thanks for listening to this presentation.